Hello, this is iRadio 1 o'clock news. First, here are the headlines. Civil servants in Jungule State have gone on a general strike over non-payment of their 5-month salary arrears. Some senior members of the SPLM-IO in Lakes, including the chairperson of the State Human Rights Commission, were yesterday arrested in Rumbek town during the launching of the party's secretariat. And the UN Office for Coordination and Humanitarian Affairs has condemned the recurrence of violence and attacks on civilians and humanitarian personnel in South Sudan. These stories and more coming to you in this news bulletin with me, Kafuki Jada. Now the news in detail. The spokesperson of Jungule Labor Union says civil servants have gone on a general strike over non-payment of their 5 months' salary arrears. Ibrahim Dhiu, the spokesperson of the Jungule Workers Trade Union, said the workers laid down their tools in all government institutions beginning on Thursday. Ibrahim also said the striking workers demand for dissolution of the so-called screening committee for payment of arrears allegedly formed by the state government to resolve the pay strike.
We declared temporary strike in all government institutions, and we have a very clear demand. We are claiming 5 months of government workforce. Also, getting a screening committee for pay. The committee is not legitimate. Because public service and human resources development is not involved in that committee. That's why we say it is not legitimate command. That committee for payment, most of members of that committee are not civil servants. They were brought from the street, and that's why we rejected that screening committee.
The strike comes a day after a peaceful demonstration staged by the civil servants in the state capital, Bor, on Thursday. A similar strike last year, sparked by pay cut, rocked the state capital, Bor, and brought operations to standstill after angry strikers closed down Bor Airport and invaded state secretariat. Some SPLM-IO senior members in Lake State, including the chairperson of the State Human Rights Commission, were yesterday arrested during the launching of the party's secretariat in Rumbek town. This is according to Agok Makur, a member of the SPLM-IO political bureau and chairperson of the National Mobilization and Organization Committee. Makur, who is the Deputy National Minister of Finance, told iRadio the team was led by the Secretary General of the SPLM-IO, Regina Joseph Kaba. Kaba was not arrested, but her party member, Malok Makol Bol, who is chairperson of the State Human Rights Commission, was arrested along with other senior staff, but he was later released following an intervention from the deputy governor. Poth Madid Dut. The others, according to Makur, are still in the detention facilities and some are reported missing. He spoke to iRadio from Rumbek town of Lake State this morning.
تفاجأنا كثير لما تم استقال عضوية وفي مقابلتهم عضو يعني يجب ان لا يتم استقاله حتى لو كان ارتكب جريمة. هو رئيس المفوضية بتاعت الهيومن رايت، تم القبض عليه ولكن النائب الحاكم تدخل على التو وتم اطلاق سراحه في الوقت. وبعد ذهبنا الى مكتب الحركة في اطار تدشين افتتاح مكتب الحركة الشعبية بالمعارضة برومبيك. ايضا هناك كانت ظواهر سالبه من بعض الاجهزه يمكن نسميها الاجهزه النظاميه سواء بعلم أو بدون علم تم اعتقال عدد كبير من المواطنين الذين كانوا يلبسون أو يرتدون الزي بتاع الحركة الشعبية في المعارضة اللي هو البلو اللي هو اللون الظاهري. تم اعتقال، ولكن أيضا لسه في ناس لم يتم العثور عليهم.
Prior to the arrest of the Secretary General of the SPLM-IO, Regina Joseph Kaba said she was delegated by the party's chairperson, Dr. Riek Machar, to launch the office. In her remarks, she called for political space and freedom of expression in the country. This is what she had to say.
I'm delegated by our chairman, Dr. Riek Machar, to come and launch the State Secretariat of Lakes, and that is the mission I came to see and witness and open the State Secretariat. And we want political space. People should feel free to talk. You all know that the extension has been signed by all parties, and one of the demands is freedom of expression. We are in our own land. We should not be threatened. People should talk.
The state government is yet to comment on the matter. This latest incident comes 4 months after the SPLM-IO commissioner of Yerwul West County resigned from his position due to humiliation by the state governor, Rin Tony. In his resignation letter dated 14th April, Andrew Acheng informed Dr. Riek Machar as a chairperson of the SPLM-IO and copy governor of Lake State, Rin Tweni, and his deputy Poth Madid Dut. Acheng stated that his resignation came as a result of unlawfully arrest, the unilateral appointment of SPLM-IG county chairman as county executive director, who denied him the right to use the residence of the county commissioner. He also cited sabotage and responsibility interference, intimidation and security threat, and illegal search of his private residence. The former commissioner said he was humiliated after he was detained at the Babur Zaid military prison and later expelled from the county by the governor. Last month, during the extension of the transitional period of the revitalized agreement, the chairman of the SPLM-IO called on President Salva Kiir to allow political space for other political parties to exercise their political rights as required by the revitalized peace agreement. You are listening to iRadio News. The chairperson of the Joint Transitional Security Committee is calling on the soldiers and their instructors who abandoned the training centers to return to their camps. This is because Lieutenant General Wesley Welebe says the National Transitional Committee has secured plenty of food ahead of their graduation on August 30th. The delivery of 54 trucks were received by the chairpersons of the National Transitional Committee, Tud Galwak, yesterday. Speaking to the press, Welebe, who doubles as the SSPDF Assistant Chief of Defense Forces for Logistics, said 70 more trucks loaded with more food items are on their way to Juba. He called on the soldiers and instructors who deserted the training sites to report to their camps since there is now enough food for them.
Today is a great day for us because at last the food that we want for graduation of necessary unified forces, the first consignment has arrived. We received now 54 trucks with all 9 items inside. Our plan as Joint Transitional Committee is to dispatch this food immediately to the training centers. These trucks are too big, but the contractor has agreed to hire trucks to dispatch this food starting from today. We want the unified forces to immediately move to the training centers as from today. We want our instructors to move immediately to the training centers because the work is beginning.
On Wednesday, the Minister of Cabinet Affairs said the graduation of the necessary unified forces will commence on the 30th of this month. Dr. Martin Iliya announced this after a presidency meeting this week. According to Dr. Martin, the graduation of more than 52,000 forces will start in the Greater Equatoria region. More than 26,000 forces are expected to graduate from the centers including Gorom, Maridi, Morota, Owin Kibul, Muni, Rajaf, Lologo, Rambur, and Agud Makur. The 2018 Revitalized Peace Deal expect the unity government to graduate 83,000 unified forces drawn from the various parties to take charge of the security during the ongoing transitional period. The graduation of the forces has been postponed several times. You are listening to iRadio News. The deputy head of the Sudanese Sovereign Council has commended the South Sudanese parties for extending the revitalized peace agreement for additional 2 years. General Mohammed Hamdan Daglo, who arrived in Juba yesterday, met with President Salva Kiir last week. Parties of the unity government signed a roadmap that extended the current transitional period until 2024 to give time for the implementation of the pending chapters in the agreement. In their Thursday meeting, the two leaders discussed issues related to the unimplemented tasks in the revitalized peace agreement. Speaking to the state-owned TV SSBC after the meeting, Daglo declared his full support for the new peace roadmap. He urged the peace parties to maximize the extended time frame to implement the outstanding task as agreed. General Daglo also welcomed the plans by the parties to graduate the unified forces by the end of August.
وبرضه الاتفاق ده تم يعني من كل الاطراف تم بالوفاق من كل الاطراف الاتفاق. برضه نحن سعيدين جدا ان نسمع تخريج القوات في نهايه الشهر. نحن سعيدين سعاده شديده انه كونه يكون في تخريج القوات نهايه الشهر وكمان دخول القوات في نهايه نوفمبر. برضه ده يعني كلام كويس. فنحن اهم حاجه بالنسبه لنا الترتيبات الامنيه بالنسبه لنا مهمه شديده. وان شاء الله يعني نشوف اهلنا في جنوب السودان انهم ماشيين على الطريق الصحيح.
The UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has condemned the recurrence of violence and attacks on civil servants and humanitarian personnel in South Sudan. On Tuesday, 3 aid workers on a humanitarian convoy were killed in Equator County of Eastern Equatoria State. According to Alphonse Muras Chacha, a state lawmaker representing the area, the humanitarian workers were returning from a fieldwork in one of the Payams when unknown assailants opened fire in their convoy of 2 vehicles. The armed attack occurred at High Filari village at 7 o'clock in the morning. The lawmaker said the gunmen also detained several women who were on board before freeing them hours later. According to him, 3 teachers were also killed in the area last week. Security situation along the highway of Eastern Equatoria State continues to deteriorate after Tuesday's ambush along Juba-Nimule Road that left scores dead and 26 wounded. In a statement, UN OCHA says the tragic and senseless loss of lives is completely unacceptable. Sarah Bisolo Nyati is the UN humanitarian coordinator in South Sudan, and she says, and I quote, "I am deeply appalled by the continued violence targeting civilians, humanitarians, and their assets. This attack comes at the time when humanitarian access is increasingly challenging. Humanitarian space is shrinking, and funds for humanitarian actions are dwindling." End quote. Sarah said humanitarians cannot deliver life-saving support to the most vulnerable, including women, children, elderly, and disabled, while they are under attack. She reiterated her call to all armed actors to respect international humanitarian law and immediately cease targeting civilians, women, humanitarian personnel, and their assets. OCHA also appealed to the government to address the devastating attacks on humanitarian and civilians by ensuring the predators are identified and brought to justice. According to the UN, this is the 5th humanitarian worker killed in South Sudan since the beginning of the year. All the People's Organization and Youth Union have traded accusations over the mess the country is in. As South Sudan joins the rest of the world to mark International Youth Day, the South Sudan All the People's Organization blamed the youth for creating what it calls a chaotic environment for elderly persons in the country, while the youth union leader accused the elderly people of robbing young people of opportunities. Donato Ochan, who is the executive director of the All the People's Organization, says the youth are desperate to seize power from the elderly people. According to him, the young generation does not often respect the elderly and acts violently towards them. Ochan was speaking at the launch of the International Youth Day in South Sudan yesterday.
Lack of respect to older people during this war is actually impacting negatively on the younger people, because the younger people are in a hurry of taking power from older people, and they are creating what we call a chaotic society, especially in Juba. They don't respect the older people are beaten, their property are robbed. I wish this day to extend for 2 months so that we sit together with the youth and then build the bridges together.
In response, the Secretary of External Affairs of South Sudan Youth Union, Ben Kombur, says,
and I want to respond to the elderly people that you guys are also robbing us. We've been robbed, so many things. If we are beating you, it's because you are robbing us.
For his part, the Minister of Youth and Sports, Dr. Albino Bol, says there is a need to close the generational gap by ensuring the youth learn from the elderly persons. But he says the elderly people need to give some spaces for the youth to act along with them.
In South Sudan, the best way is to have bridging of the gap between the generations. So the young ones can learn from the elderly, and the elderly one also have to give some small space to the young people so they can learn from them. Because if they fade away by normal lifespan, then we will have a problem. If we don't have young people who have gained the knowledge and gained the skill from the elderly people, then now الدولة ما بيكون عنده البديل. عشان كده لازم يكون في حوار بين الناس الكبار والشباب.
The International Youth Day is marked on the 12th of August each year. It is a day of awareness recognizing youth across the globe and empowering the world's youth to make positive contributions to their communities and nations. The national theme for this year is intergenerational solidarity, building a South Sudan for all ages. You are listening to our radio news, and now to the international news brought to you by MTN. My colleague Susie Philip joins us.
Aku, hana magi safir, hana gifiri zuma halta wilu gurus, sante de malian gurus, gubal mujiri maligana, handira sulu gurus fi wilayat.
Italy sa wara zede, Italy za vitap ta jere rasul gurus, gubudu gurus fi senta. Ite maruf gali MTN jibulen na momo fi belede.
Aku, mumu de biga sunu kaman besara na kef zado
Momo de MTN mobile money. Bre MTN mobile money de ita bak de rafi zu guru staki de kulu video telefon take. Wita bak de rasul le ay zone alindo account MTN mobile money de fi ay zaman u fi ay waqt dalta der. Ashanta mi fata hisab ma Momo MTN mobile money lazim kelta dusu nejma 200 selim wita bilgo ke tirmin malumat al bisaidi ta kef ita mi fata hisab take.
And now to the stories making headlines in the region and in the international scene. Kenya's newly re-elected lawmaker Didmas Barasa has surrendered to police after being on the run for 3 days over the shooting and killing of an opponent's assistant. Police are treating Mr. Barasa as a suspect in the incident that happened at a polling station on the voting day. He is currently helping with investigations. Barasa's Kimilili constituency is in western Kenya near the border with Uganda. His lawyer had on Thursday applied for bail pending his arrest. Elsewhere, 20 people suspected of instigating the deadly riots that swept through parts of South Africa in July last year will appear in court in the eastern city of Durban late on Friday. They will face a number of charges. More than 300 people were killed in the unrest that erupted after South Africa's former president Jacob Zuma was jailed for contempt of court. This is an initial appearance dealing with matters such as whether the suspects will be granted bail and to set a date for the next time they will be in court. And finally, blasts at a Russian-operated airfield in Crimea this week have significantly degraded its Navy's Black Sea Fleet, the UK Ministry of Defense says. The Saki basin west of Russian-ruled Crimea was shocked by a string of blasts on Tuesday, killing one person. The blast led to the loss of 8 Russian combat jets, the MOD said in its daily intelligence update. Ukraine has not claimed responsibility, but satellite images suggest the possibility of a targeted attack. This is the end of stories making headlines in the region and in the international scene.
Thank you, Susie Philip, for the international and also regional updates. And now to the sports news. My colleague Akile joins us.
In the world of sports, we begin with locals. FIFA President Gianni Infantino has expressed interest to visit the country for the second time to attend the inauguration of Juba National Stadium. This came during a regular assembly of CAF and a meeting of CICAFA in Tanzania recently. It was confirmed by the SSFA President Agostino Maduro on his arrival today. In football, the World Cup will start a day earlier than planned on Sunday, 20th November, with host Qatar facing Ecuador. The game was due to be played on 21st November as the third game, with Senegal against the Netherlands set to be the opening match earlier that day. However, the administrative arm of the world governing body FIFA submitted a proposal to move the Qatar game. The kickoff will be at 4, means the tradition of the host or holders starting the tournament continues. And finally, in basketball, the NBA will honor late 11-time champion Bill Russell by retiring his jersey number 6 across the league. Boston Celtics legend Russell died at the age of 88 last month. Current players who wear 6, including LeBron James, will be able to continue to use the number, but it will not be issued to new players. Center Russell won a record 11 NBA titles and 5 NBA Most Valuable Player awards during a 13-year career with the Celtics. That's all from the world of sports, and back to you, Kavuki Jada.
Thank you, Emmanuel Joseph Akile, for that sports updates. And you are listening to our radio news, and to end this bulletin, here are the headlines again. Civil servants in Jungule State have gone on a general strike over non-payment of their 5 months' salary arrears. Some senior members of the SPLM-IO in Lake States, including the chairperson of the State Human Rights Commission, were yesterday arrested in Rumbek town during the launching of the party's secretariat. And the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has condemned the recurrence of violence and attacks on civilians and humanitarian personnel in South Sudan. That's the end of iRadio Afternoon News. If there's a story or any event you would like iRadio to cover or reports about, please send us a text message on +211 925 287 870. It's also our WhatsApp number. Follow us on Twitter at iRadio Juba, like our Facebook page, iRadio, subscribe to our YouTube channel at iRadio South Sudan, and you can also visit and listen to us online at www.iradio.org. Stay tuned for the news in Arabic at 1/2 past the hour. I am Kafuki Jada, and on behalf of the news team, thanks for listening.